Okay. Hello. It's August 26th. This is Marina Crane from Sutina, and I'll say hello to Darcy and Marie and any other people who are listening. I have a guest today, and we're going to have a really sort of blunt conversation on a couple of items. But say hello.
Hello. Thank you for having me in your home, Marina.
So the reason why I thought I'd do this live is because like she's just here to visit, and I didn't want to prep her in what the topic was going to be, so it's spontaneous. And so you're going to get her how she's questioning or what she thinks about my story and have some interaction with that. So consider yourself fortunate, my audience. So the topic I want to talk about is, like, a lot of people have always asked, like, what is it like? See, again, hold on. What is it like to live in First Nations, or what is it like to, like First Nations, Inuit, or Métis? And I think a lot of people don't understand, we're a little bit more sophisticated here in Sutina because we have land policies, housing policies. We have the resources to develop these. Mm-hmm. So the past week or the past year, my sister, like in October, I'm 74 and she's 73, so we're very close.
Yeah.
And so my parents raised us like twins. Mm-hmm. The difference is I'm the dark twin and she's the light twin. Mm. Okay, but she's lived her majority of her life since she was a late teenager in Utah.
Oh, okay.
As a full-fledged Mormon.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, so interesting topic, right?
Yeah. I'm just like, knowing you, I'm like, how did your practically twin sister become a Mormon? How does that work?
Well, on top of this too, this is a discussion about my brother. My whole family's Mormon.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and my late mother, I took care of her. I was her caregiver for over 10 years. Mm-hmm. Like everything I did for her. Yeah. And her history is like she was raised in residential school, and she had a lot of emotional issues because of intergenerational trauma. Mm-hmm. But the part of it is like how it applies to me and my siblings.
Yeah.
See, it didn't really occur to me until because I really thought, I'm at peace with being ex-Mormon. Okay, yeah. But then I met a fellow whose partner had said, "Oh, you were Mormon, just like you." Like,
yeah. How does that work?
And I thought I need to address this because I think a lot of people don't really, like, for me, I didn't really get it. Mm-hmm. But the reason I want to talk about it is that housing policy states that when I was growing up, in terms of lateral violence, and I've explained in previous podcasts that they developed a policy. By the time I was 24, that any woman who was 55 years and younger and had no children could not apply for a house until they reached 55 here in Sutina. Now that's changed because I said, like, desperate times.
Well, yeah, maybe it changed because there's somebody whose name rhymes with Marina Crane who got in their face about it.
Well, I explained in my podcast, like, the numerous programs that I voluntarily got money coming into the community so I could be the janitor, and they refused. Mm-hmm. And the only way they can combat it was to create this policy.
Yeah.
So anyway, the majority of my life, I lived quite a few years in Utah. Mm-hmm. And even though I had a brother and sister who were Mormon, they went on missions. They got sealed in the temple. Their children were born in the covenant. Oh, and wow. Basically I explained what that all is, because a lot of Indigenous people don't know. Yeah. Born in the covenant, and but a lot of the intergenerational trauma, and I think too, just the whole notion of white privilege coming in and being like the godsend for the savage. When I was a child and my parents went to South American India, they had been recruited and groomed by a religious group called Moral Rearmament. Okay. And this was taking place in Mackinac Island, Michigan. And the reality is, like, a lot of the politicians mm-hmm. were groomed and mind controlled there too. I just found out recently.
Oh.
And there's been a lot of sexual abuse with certain politicians since,
Yeah.
like in the middle of World War II and afterwards.
Yeah.
So the Oxford group was created during the middle of World War II, and so they developed this program. And a lot of it, I truly believe, is trying to mirror indigenous ways of knowing, holistic and collective ways of knowing. Like, what's the Maslow's hierarchy? That's all based on...
Hierarchy of needs, yeah.
Yeah, that's all based on indigenous ways of knowing. And so, there's so many other psychology frameworks, and AA is part of that. So that's why when I say my family was susceptible to cults, and I really think people who suffer from intergenerational trauma are vulnerable to cults. And I explained that in my podcast. I said, first, my parents were in Indian residential school. My grandmother was in Indian residential school. And I didn't go to school in the residential school. I was bussed in, but it was still grooming.
It's still the experience, and the end outcome I think they want is the same.
Well, and this is
whether you live there or not.
And see, the reality of it is too, is like it's a shake. Like I'm shaking the tree, the olive tree, this tree where the snake of Satan is supposed to house, and Eve was supposed to grab it. Well, I'm shaking that fucking tree because when you look at history, and most of my podcast, I talk about the 15th century with the conquistadors taking 15-year-old indigenous girls from the Americas.
Yeah.
Then I talk about black women, like how they stopped slavery, but yet they had plantations that just breeded slaves, and how when they do the DNA, when there's one genetic where you follow it comes from the male's genealogy, the male's DNA.
Yeah.
So when they do testing for black American men, 60 to 70% aren't black come from Africa. They come from Europe. Because of that breeding.
Conquistadors.
No, just the black slave trade.
Okay.
Because they had, for 100 years, they had breeding farms, plantations in the United States.
Yeah.
So the majority of, even though their skin is black, they have that one gene that shows that their paternal lineage is European. Whereas if you get an actual person from Africa, their lineage will show the male is African.
Yeah.
Okay, whereas, so anyway, it just goes to show like just how much the DNA has mixed with people due to slavery.
Yeah.
And so when they had the plantations, they would segregate, like they'd have lighter skin black and darker skin black. And so the darker your skin, again, like the caste system in India, the darker your skin, the more you'd be like a house slave, field slave. If you, if you were lighter skin, you were a house slave.
Yeah.
Darker skin, you'd be the field slave. So they call the lighter skin fancy boys and fancy girls. So when they sold them, they were sold at a higher price than the dark skins. Now, when Lincoln freed the slaves, there was also this big uprising with the Sioux, and there was the largest mass execution in Mankato, Minnesota.
Yeah.
And so that's where my great grandmother comes from. She was like 5 and under when her parents, who were in their 30s, ran away. But what I'm getting at is that that same time, John A. Macdonald and the Canadians decided to create the Indian Act.
Yeah.
Okay, because, again, sorry, but stupid white people.
Very stupid white people.
They thought that because indigenous people weren't good slaves, they didn't think, like, hello, scientific-wise, again, you got to think about the time. They did not think indigenous people made good slaves because we were savages. But black people were better slaves. They didn't realize it was because of DNA. Like the Oshati-Shakoi, the 7 Council Fires, we have O-type blood. That's because we were hunters, we weren't grazers. We didn't graze animals. So when the Europeans came over, because of diseases, the first 100 years they killed 5 generations of children from diseases. Not only that, but the Portuguese, Dutch, Spanish, English, and French, the 5 conquering races, those were the ones that tortured and murdered.
Yeah. Okay,
so all that was the first 100 years. Now, of course, we're not going to be good slaves because we're not immune to the diseases of white people. Okay, but white people didn't see that. They just thought we were animals, that we couldn't be, they couldn't take us as slaves. They had to basically try and train us because we were so fucking stupid. So they created industrial schools. Mm-hmm. And again, they recruited fancy boys, the mm-hmm. lighter skinned indigenous boys. Mm-hmm. Okay, and then in Parliament they said, well, if we train them, they're going to go back to the reserves and they're going to marry Indian girls. Okay, and those Indian girls are going to convert them back to savages. So we've got to train the Indian girls too. So they're training the Indian girls to be like house servants, kitchen, mm-hmm. The indigenous people under the Indian Act and going to residential schools and industrial schools weren't there to be smart. They were there to be slaves.
It's interesting that they still use the term industrial school until I know the one on Guyana, that was an industrial school, and somebody who went there told me that it's they maybe gave us up to grade 7 math. Technically I have a high school diploma, but they don't teach you nothing in industrial school.
No, industrial schools, they were just there for farmhands, ranch hands, the lowest of the low.
Yeah.
Okay, so in the Calgary Stampede, you have white people who just work with shit, in the stockyards. Yeah. Well, that's what they wanted for indigenous men.
To be like you.
Yeah, and even
sweep it.
Yeah, even when I was 30, I worked with a Mormon woman who they had a beet farm in southern Alberta, mm-hmm. and she said the Crees came in again, field hands. That were such savages that were not intelligent enough. So that mentality of what is a fancy boy and a fancy girl mm-hmm. is equivalent to Métis.
Mm. That's a spicy take. Have you told anyone Métis that?
Oh yes, yes, because the majority of Tsuut'ina was created because of Métis. Mm-hmm. The Métis, Alberta. If it weren't for Tsuut'ina, Alberta wouldn't have even been a province, because mm-hmm. the settlers in northern Alberta were starving. They were growing potatoes. Mm-hmm. So the Métis up there, who had intermarried with the French and the Scottish, they came down, and again using sign language and then marrying Tsuut'ina women, mm-hmm. they went into the Treaty 7 area and traded dry meat and foods, dried foods and berries, and took it up north to the starving settlers.
Yeah.
And they did that for years.
Yeah.
So the majority of the people here in Tsuut'ina, because we lived right by Fort Calgary.
Yeah, and because that was the Métis people, they put a lot of their cabins and stuff along the elbow, right? And
along the train tracks.
Along the train tracks, and
and understand
is right here.
And understand this too: Bowness and Forest Lawn, mm-hmm. those were hangouts for Indigenous people. Mm-hmm. And where they're doing all the upgrading for the Calgary Stampede, that East Village, that was all where they had Skid Row, the bootleggers, Métis. Yeah. Okay, and so the brothels were in Bowness and Forest Lawn. And that's the only place where Indigenous people could go. Because again,
the pass system. Or?
Yeah, fancy boys and fancy girls, because you get paid top dollar. Mm-hmm. Okay, so and then even if we had white people come into Tsuut'ina, they didn't marry the women; they just had children with them. Mm-hmm. See, so what I'm getting at is my sister can pass for a white woman.
Oh, okay. So when you said that you're the dark twin, you literally mean
the dark twin.
That because you're very visibly indigenous.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so growing up here, they all thought that my sister's father was white.
Oh.
Now get this: our former chief, all his family, again, the grandfather was Métis. He was mm-hmm. a fancy boy. He was one of the boys who were recruited into the industrial school, as mm-hmm. well as some other families here who are fair-skinned, because mm-hmm. they were fancy boys.
Yeah.
And that's who the Indian agent recruited into those industrial schools, because, damn it, if they had the fair skin, then they must be fucking smart, because they got European DNA in them. That's how stupid the ideology of systemic racism is. Okay, and now how it carries into my family. Like I said, former chief, his sister is going and saying that she's not indigenous, and yet she's, she's got a house and she's got everything here. She's been voted and everything. She's as old as I am.
Yeah.
And the former chief is around my age.
Yeah.
Okay, so when he was growing up in high school, they used to ask him if he was indigenous. He says, "No, I'm Mexican."
Oh my God.
And his father, we used to have a nickname for him. The girls used to call him Cover Boy. And I said, "Why?" Because he used to have makeup in his drawer to put white makeup on to look more white.
Oh my God.
So there's a lot of people. As I grew up here, who were fancy boys and fancy girls, who were ashamed to be indigenous. Okay, so when I'm talking about identity, I'm not talking like when people are pretending to be Métis. I'm going, it's a deeper subject than that. I said, because you've got indigenous people here. Like when I was working up north, I brought a whole bunch of kids from Fort Mackay, took them around Sutina. This was like decades ago. And they said, "Where are the Indians?" I said, "Here they are. Those are white people." I'm going, "No, we're Sutina."
Yeah.
Okay, because we've been by the city my whole life. And even when people hear me talk, if they didn't see me, they wouldn't even think I was indigenous.
Yeah.
Okay, and even that at age 8, I had Cree girls trying to beat me up because they thought I was pretending to be white because I speak English. I don't speak an indigenous language. So even that's another topic of discussion.
Yeah.
Okay, however, when I talk about the former chief's sister denying that she has indigenous blood, even though she's on the ban list and is voting, because they're going to pass a law, S2, to change the Indian Act for the children who lost their status.
Yeah.
Okay, so why I'm saying this is that they'll be on the general list, but in order to actually have voting rights, you've got to be voted onto the membership. So this lady here is saying that she's non-indigenous, but she's been voting her whole life. But again, it has to do with identity and being ashamed of being indigenous.
That must drive you bonkers about that lady.
No, get this. My sister, my twin, we'll call her my twin, is ashamed to be indigenous. The same as my brother, who's darker than me, is ashamed to be indigenous because they're Mormon.
It's interesting that on one hand it seems like people are using this racist idea of the blood quanta and stuff to argue that yes, I can be indigenous, yes, I can be Métis, but it's like, no, it's a cultural thing. It's about belonging in the community. And people who actually can belong in the community are like, I'm not sure about that because they're Mormon. It's damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Well, again, too, in the Mormon doctrine, they didn't allow black people to have the priesthood.
Exactly.
So
with your brother being a very,
he's
as you say, a dark Mormon, how does that work?
Because if you're a really staunch Mormon and you're a good little Christian Mormon, when you die, your skin turns white. If you're a woman, any colored woman, and you want to get to heaven, the only way you're going to get to heaven in the Mormon belief is to marry a Mormon man in the Mormon temple. And if you divorce, like if my sister-in-law divorces my brother, right off the bat, she's not going into heaven, even if she's had 5 children with him. Because she's sealed to him.
Now, she's going to stay that way no matter what, I guess.
Exactly. Now get this. Until last week, and this is the topic I wanted to talk about, my Mormon brother and Mormon sister got into a conflict because my sister, they're going to have her build a house by my brother's driveway.
Okay.
And he doesn't want it there.
Oh.
Okay, because she says, "Well, I'm going to rent it out." Well, in the policy, you can't. Okay, because she doesn't want her husband's dying.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're hoping because she's going to be 73.
Yeah.
We don't want her in a nursing home in Utah with a bunch of racists.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so there's a conflict between the two Mormon brother and sister.
Yeah.
Now get this. I'm talking to my siblings, and I'm saying, our brother has a mental health problem. Because every time, like my sister over here, she's got a house when my mother was alive.
Oh,
My
so these all your siblings
yeah,
close by?
yeah. So my brother, the one who's Mormon, is over here.
Yeah.
He didn't want her here because, and he made an issue of it. And I said, no, her house is going to be there.
Yeah.
Then his daughter too didn't want her auntie to have a house here. And I'm going, what are you talking about? Our mother says it's going to be here. This is when my mother was alive.
Yeah.
This brother is making issue because he's Mormon.
Mm-hmm.
Now my other brother, his house is here. When he was going to have a house, the same brother didn't want his house there.
It's the one with horses?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, the fact that my sister, like, okay, it was okay, she was going to move there, but then she's changing her mind. She can't change her mind because it's against our housing policy.
Yeah.
But that being said, I might have a younger sister who lives in Edmonton. When she's retiring, because she's 60.
Yeah.
Okay, when she retires from work, she's going to have her house over here.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to my nephew, who's working with housing, I said, every sibling that has wanted to put a house in this area, my father and mother's area,
mm-hmm.
he's denied them. This brother. I said, that's a mental health issue.
Yeah, and well, does he hold some unique authority that, like, he can actually deny, or
because
is he
he's got
just
the fucking priesthood? And
but then like, what does that matter on Sittina, right? Like,
okay, like, and this is what's so profound and so stupid, is my nephew says, Auntie, he called housing and the staff went to his house and he invited them into his teepee to, like, make it like something ritual and ceremonial about this whole
Mormon teepee.
Yes. And I told my other brother, he says, I helped him set up that teepee. I said, well, for whatever reason, he now thinks he's some sort of medicine man because he's doing all this stuff regarding the land in a teepee. I said, how, like, in terms of mental health, how crazy is that?
Yeah.
Okay, now get this. I'm talking to my brother, and my older brother, he passed away. I have two brothers that passed away.
Yeah.
And my younger brother, his daughter lives down by the road.
Yeah.
She has a say, too, about who's going to stay in this area. Because this is what you call matriarchal or respecting elders.
Yeah.
It's whoever's the oldest has a say. Mm-hmm. I am the oldest grandchild of my grandfather and grandmother. I'm the oldest now of my parents that's alive.
You've been here.
Okay, so, and I said to my younger brother, I said, I'm staying out of this. I said, because of the way these two Mormons have treated me my whole life. Mm-hmm. I said, I lived in Utah for over a decade. They never invited me for Christmas or Thanksgiving, nothing. Mm-hmm. They treated me like I was the lowest of the low in the caste system. Mm-hmm. I said, because that's a cult.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and again, my sister, because again, I haven't dated a Mormon man, and I when I was in Utah,
you kept yourself safe.
Well, of course, and the thing is, I was roommates with her, and one time she went out with this white Mormon guy, and she came back all frazzled, and I thought, you are fighting off these horny white boys. And within a month, she met this Navajo guy and married him in the temple. So this is the guy that's like, he's dying from cancer, and that's why she's moving home.
Yeah. Okay,
now, when I lived in Utah, she gossiped that I was gay. Because in the Mormon in the Mormon thinking, you can't be homosexual.
So she was trying to hurt you. Hopefully that was like water off a duck's back. Well, it's keeping you safe from Mormonism in a way.
And the thing about it is, like, I've seen so many Mormon missionaries who are gay.
Yeah.
Who married and had to hide from their Native American wife that they were gay because she just thought, oh, I'm married to a white man, I'm going to go to heaven.
Yeah.
See, and the thing is, like with my sister, she passes herself as a white man with her Navajo husband. Mm-hmm. And she lost her status, got her status back, because under the Indian Act, if you marry a Native American in the United States as a Canadian indigenous woman, you lose your status. Okay, but when I was in Utah, her husband's relatives considered her a white woman.
Oh.
Okay, now get this. So, because when you go to heaven, There are 3 kingdoms.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even get to the bottom kingdom because I'm not even married in the Mormon temple.
Oh.
I may so I'm not I stopped being Mormon a long time when I started looking after my mother.
Yeah.
And we had a discussion, and she'd say, why do you have these people come visit me? I said, and she'd read her Bible in the Mormon book too, but I said, Mom, you need company.
Yeah.
Okay, and she says, well, when I die, I just want one Indian to have one scripture from the Book of Mormon, and that's it.
Yeah.
She didn't want a Mormon funeral.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so understand this, okay? This whole thing of grieving too, if you're not married in the temple or born in the covenant and you're a convert, you can do baptism for the dead and your dead relatives, even if they hated the Mormon church. You can baptize them in the dead in terms of their ghost, so that you're sealed. Now get this, my brother, who's married to a Chicano woman who became Sutina.
Yeah.
Okay, when I'm talking about this dispute here and how he disputes everything, my other brother said the 2 older brothers, the older brother and the other, they had a discussion. The reason I'm talking about this is this is part of my family. All of a sudden this week I find out they've been talking that our brother here isn't my dad's son.
Scandal.
Exactly, and I'm going, what? I've been here. I'm the oldest, and I'm here. And my brother says, yes. She said, I was talking with the other brother, and we said, our brother here, something's the matter with him. That's why I said, there's got to be, I know he's autistic, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so, I know that.
Yeah.
Okay. Looking that aside and the way he is and everything, I just thought, no, he's Mormon, I'm leaving him alone. But the reality of it is when I think about it, I had to really think about it, because it has to do with identity. He is the only sibling who would terrorize my mother while I was looking after her. I'd come home and she'd be crying because he'd tell her to fuck off. He'd come and he'd demand money. He was cruel to her.
Yeah.
And as much as I was here, as soon as he saw me come, he just took off.
Yeah.
Everything to discredit me.
Yeah.
Everything, because I was looking after our mother, and he hated her so much. He even said to her, I'm not getting sealed to you in the temple. I'm only getting sealed to my wife and my kids.
Yeah.
Broke my mom's heart.
Yeah.
And I wondered, why does he have so much hatred towards my mother?
Yeah.
And I thought, is it because when we were growing up, people were talking about my sister Edna as having a white dad, and that he thinks my mother had isn't yes, it's his mother, but he has a different father, that he had to put so much, project so much hate towards our mother. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Why would he have so much hate? And the fact is, I took care of my mom.
Yeah.
At the cost of my own health. I used to walk before when my mother was alive.
But then, it probably became too much.
Yeah, so
you were trying to do things right in a Mormon way for her, just to have her have company that was familiar.
Exactly.
That could really wound your soul.
It did, and I've recovered from it. But the recovery of it took this whole closure with Nathan Chasing Horse.
Yeah.
And the fact that there was this white guy who accompanied me to the sentencing, treated me so good. And I try and tell people, when I was in Utah and I had to come home, one of the white guys from the branch here in Calgary had his nephew drive me home because it was his car. That guy who lived in Provo, Utah, all the way 16 hours driving from Provo, Utah to Calgary, didn't talk to me. He was so enraged that he had to bring the savage home. We were driving through Idaho, and we ran into a deer. He didn't even stop to see how damaged the car was. He just kept going.
Oh my gosh.
And so sometimes, even in April, when I was coming back from Las Vegas, I was sitting with 2 white guys on either side of me, and I said, I can switch. But they were so, I could, just the tension that I'm an indigenous elder woman, how dare I sit in between them? That energy I sense.
is like a physical thing.
Yes, like
when
it's
you go into a space.
exactly. And so for me, this white guy who I call him Wachashtawashte, which means good man.
Wachashtawashte.
How he treated me, and I tell people I've never been treated like that. I told the lady who was the victim, I did a prayer ceremony with her and her daughter. I was on the phone with her last week, and I said, I've never had that. I've never had a male do this, even though I have brothers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if I've trouble with my brothers, it's with their wives.
Yeah.
I've never like had that male. You know, I don't want to sound like I'm pitiful. I haven't been sexually active.
You're not
in
pitiful,
50 years.
but then as somebody who, like, society is just, they're always trying to push you to the side. It just naturally has, like, never happened that there's been, like, a non-creepy white man. So it's like, the sad thing is that you take notice, because that's never happened.
Exactly.
That by default, all white men are creepy losers to you.
Yes.
So when one of them isn't, then it's like, that really lands deep within you.
Yes, because even too, during the pandemic, like, again, I'm so naive. That's why my podcast, I talk about healthy human sexuality, because I didn't know you could access porn. There were stories coming out of nursing homes where, you know, like adult children put their parents in a nursing home, and their mother becomes promiscuous. You've heard?
Yeah, I've had a lot of seniors in my life, and there's a dementia care facility near where I live in Forest Lawn. There's one in Dover, and that's actually seeing a lot of seniors in long-term care. They regularly get tested for STIs and stuff, and it's like the reverse thing of when your parents, well, I guess this is probably a really white thing, when your parents have like a talk with you about sex, which is a very white patriarchal thing, that your parents are supposed to like sit you down and have this talk. But then now it's like the kid being sat down for a talk with like the nurse in the long-term care facility, and the nurse is like, your mom is a total hoe. She's out of control. And then the kid is like trying to plug their ears, and it's like, no, this is... And then probably because, too, these people in homes were so repressed, they don't have, like, healthy sexuality. So then, like, they go, like, the total opposite route, and they're doing things that, like, that aren't correct, that don't mean anything, that aren't safe for them. Because they're like, I guess I can now, and there's no tether. I'm in this dementia space.
Yeah, and one of them was a man. He got up in the middle of the dining room and he yelled, "I want sex!" So they brought in his sons and they bought him an iPad with porn, and he settled down.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so when I say I haven't been sexually active in 50 years, and when I talk on my podcast about healthy human sexuality, and when I try to say to people, I don't know what it's like to be oppressed or suppressed. Mm-hmm. You know, I've never had, like, when I was sexually assaulted, that was like over 55 years ago. Mm-hmm. And the fact is, like, I've had to be very social. I've had to be very open, like, even with my roommates. So even when I'm talking to my sister, because with women and our hormones, the oxytocin, we get, when we talk to other women, that stimulates us too. Mm-hmm. But my cousin said, "Are you bisexual?" I said, "Look, the definition of young people today, as elders, we need to know these words: they, them, he." And she says, "Well, I'm a he, she." I said, "No, I'm trying to be serious." I said, "The proper word is they." Mm-hmm. I said, "And there's also polyamory." I said, "There's so many discussions because young people are talking about this." I said, "And a lot of indigenous women, because of trauma, because either their husbands have cheated, they've been under coercive control their whole life, or else they're just ashamed of their sexuality."
They're under the Indian Act.
Yes, and it also goes into the whole genre of being ashamed about being indigenous. Mm-hmm. That's why I'm talking about my brother and sister who are Mormon. Mm-hmm. And the fact that this other lady here whose brother, like, they can pass for white. and she's saying that she's not indigenous, but she is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so again, at what point we're all elders too. I'm talking about everybody that I'm talking about is elderly.
Yeah.
And I'm going, at what point in our lives have we broken from that cult mentality? Because when you're debriefing or reconstructing your identity after leaving a cult,
Yeah.
it should be heartbreaking. It should be tear-jerking. And if
time.
yes, if it doesn't happen, if that process doesn't happen, there's nothing you can do to change that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why, like, when I say the whole notion of the hereafter, when in Mormonism, when people die, automatically they're going to be shifted into these three kingdoms. But if you're not even in there or converted, then you're not even going to heaven. Just because the church is so fucking true. And the whole fact is that the more spiritual you are, the more whiter you are. So even when I pray, when I say protective, reflective, healing energy, I don't go protective, reflective, healing light.
Yeah.
I don't say the word light or white, all because of what I experienced in Utah amongst Mormons.
Yeah. They don't spread that imagery.
Exactly. That whole and even too, like when I talk about like fancy girls and fancy boys, and I'm going, when I grew up, when they talk about Métis, it was like a swear word. Mm-hmm. because Métis, like until 2 years ago, the Métis, Inuit, and the 9 Sioux tribes were not even considered indigenous. Did you know that?
I think you had told me that before.
Yeah.
That was very surprising, especially about the Sioux tribes.
Yes, there's I think 8 or 9 Sioux tribes and 1 Lakota. The rest are Dakota.
Mm-hmm.
So even then, they don't have the same status. But with the Métis, because they weren't didn't have an Indian agent. Okay, you got to understand, Inuit and Métis didn't have Indian agents like First Nations.
Yeah.
Okay, so the grooming and when even though the people who were here like intermarrying were Métis,
mm-hmm.
they weren't full white. There was still shame and guilt attached to it because Métis were considered drunks, like prostitutes, whatever. Like it's because again, who fancy boy, fancy girl, the lighter your skin, the more attractive you are as a prostitute. Mm-hmm. You look at the when they come out of foster care, 14-year-old indigenous Inuit, First Nations, Métis kids are being trafficked at the age of 14. And I said, why? Because you can dress up as any person. You can dress them up as Mexican, Iranian, Chinese. But not only that, we have hardly any body hair. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's our genes. My blood type is I'm an O donor. I have hardly any hair. Yeah. I don't. And so my sister says, you can get a massage with your Blue Cross. So I told my work friend, use your Blue Cross. She says, oh, I don't want to go and shave my legs to go get a massage. And I'm going, what? She says, yeah. She says, I told my worker, my companion, she said, I told her, I don't have hair on my legs. And the white woman says, show me. She did not believe my sister. My sister lifted up her pants leg. She says, oh, you have no stubble. She says, no, we're indigenous. We don't have hair.
Yeah.
I said, so when you and body odor.
I'm an O negative, and I'm probably the hairiest person ever. It's all over. There's no escaping it.
So okay, so now what was I?
Is there? I'm just gonna check and
okay.
See. Is my car okay?
I don't. Oh, I think they're doing the septic. Could you close that window? Because I'm recording too.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, as I'm recording and we got a little disrupted here, I just wanted to it's a definition of how sometimes we have neglected to realize that when we talk about systemic racism, this was created before I was born, and this whole system of the color of one's skin as being better than the other is so entrenched in society that nowadays people are saying and claiming to be Métis when they don't even have any indigenous blood in them whatsoever.
And they weren't raised in the culture.
And they weren't raised in the culture. And even if you're raised in a culture, what I've been talking about too, especially within my own family, my own community, is we still have issues of identity. And so when I'm growing up, the majority of people didn't like Métis because they were allowed to, those Métis were allowed to go and get drunk, and they were horrible. The warnings of watch out for Métis men, they're going to sexually assault you, because again, they're even at the Calgary Stampede at 12 years old, I'm pushing my brother and sister in a carriage, and I have these white men catcalling me, again, all because of this whole notion of human trafficking. And here I am, I didn't even know that was created, and this whole Indian Act is set up just for that. Mm-hmm. So even now, this bill, I think it's Bill S62, is hopefully will change, because this is the law. When I say a nation within a nation, what it means is indigenous people who are under the Indian Act are under a different law than people who live in the province or in Canada itself. We're a nation within a nation that is governed by a law that states we do not have sovereignty over our own children. So this bill is going to be changed, and it's 2026, which will give Indigenous people sovereignty over their child and family systems away from the province and the federal government. Now, what does that mean? The example is 20 years ago, when Nathan Chasing Horse came in here, and he sexually assaulted at least 5 of these girls who were teenagers. Out of the 5, he took 3 of them, I think 3 or 2 of them, with him, and they joined his cult. This former chief here, he enabled Nathan Chasing Horse to be here by paying the rent of those children and their parents when they moved to the United States. Why am I so upset about it? Because I've lived my majority of my life in the United States, and not once did I have my rent paid for or my education paid for. I got, I think, 1 year of education paid for, but the rest of it I paid for myself. And the fact is, out of those girls, one of them was 14 when she met Nathan, immediately tried to charge him. It took until 2015 for him to be banished. Now, did they help that young woman? Did they give her any victim services money? Nothing. Because again, we didn't have sovereignty over our children. My own niece was apprehended, put in a foster care halfway house in Calgary, and was trafficked out of there. She was a victim of Nathan Chasing Horse sexual assault, and the same with my brother. That's why he served time. Now, again, I'm saying this former chief and leadership enabled Nathan Chasing Horse to thrive here. They would demand that these girls' rents were paid for. And even when he was arrested, they paid for all those people who were in his cult to move back to Sutina. And who did they miss out? That 15-year-old girl who right from the beginning, he took her from the school, took her out 3 times, one in a bush and a couple of times in the motel, took videotapes of her. They should, if we were under Child and Family, she would have sued the chief and council. But because we did not have sovereignty, they can't do that. But once they get sovereignty, and this is what I want Indigenous people and people to understand, you think we have authority. We don't. When this law is passed, and if a crime like that should ever happen again to this young woman, Nikki, if it ever happens again, she would be able to sue leadership, because then leadership would have the sovereign right to be sued for not protecting children, women and children.
Of their own nation.
Yes.
And I think I've told you this before, Marina, but my partner and I, we have the same chromosome, so we can't have children. And when we looked into adoption, this is in Calgary and Forest Lawn, it's all of those kids are Indigenous. And it freaked us out that all of the kids available, like not one of those fancy kids you can pay to have like a brand new baby from like China or Ukraine and name it and stuff. And if you're just like, no, there are kids that need a home, all the kids that need a home have been taken from their people, they've been taken from their nation, they've been taken from their culture. And it just felt so disgusting as a white person to be like, all of these kids are 14-year-old gals from like Siksika, from Sutuna.
Yeah, so that's
what right do we have?
Exactly, because again, the right you have is because your sovereignty oversees us. Your nation oversees my nation. And because of that, your society paints a stereotype that women like me are so fucking savage, like they did with the industrial school, like they did with slavery, that we couldn't be trained to be even a slave. That we can't even have responsibility over our own children.
It was so sickening and just like a big... I've felt really gross to be a white person in my life, but I think that was definitely one of like the top 3 times that I was like, this is disgusting to be a white person.
Yeah, and for people to be in denial. Like when I in the '60s, when I saw the black students walking, Martin Luther King, all that, I thought, oh, it's over there, but it was actually here. When I'm going to school at Fairview School, Fairview School, Lord Beaverbrook. Yeah. When I'm around white people, I always fought. They were always swearing at me. We had to physically fight. I had to physically fight boys and girls, because of how racist they were to me. Then when I went into high school, they didn't talk to me, didn't even touch me.
Yeah.
Now understand this, because
sealed you off.
Now understand this. On my podcast I talk about the Tuscany Air Force, the pilots, black pilots. When President Roosevelt, when he said to this black man, "How can I get the black vote?" He says, "Make the military open for black men." Now his son had enrolled in West Point. His son passed for a white man, but when they found out he had a black father, they said, "Don't touch him, don't talk to him. We'll do everything so that he can fall out of this university, so he can fail." He became the 3rd highest graduate.
Wow.
For 4 years, not being touched. So when Roosevelt asked his dad, "What can you do?" he says, "Open up the military." So his son, because his son had graduated 3rd highest, took the test, got his pilot's license, opened up the recruitment. 30,000 black men, military black men, applied. 16 of them became air pilots, the Tuscany Airmen. I'm using that as an example of what it was like to go to school in Calgary.
Yeah.
When I went to school for the first time when I was 5. 2 years out here on the reserve. It was the first time I saw my first white woman, a teacher. And then when I went to school, I'd go into school, face that every day, come home and be indigenous. Go back in and face racism. And white people, when I talk in the city, say, how did you do that? And I thought, what are they talking about? See, just as me being ignorant about sovereignty, all this I had to learn. All this. And I tell people, I learn more about treaty from young indigenous lawyers that are heterosexual and bisexual, or whatever gender they choose, than I do from older people, because the older people who are talking about treaty are talking to uneducated indigenous politicians. You have to be educated.
Yeah, and the possibility to be educated would have been limited, because under the Indian Act it's like, oh, we're only going to educate you in things we think that you should know.
Exactly.
Which isn't the truth.
Because I didn't want to be a teacher.
Yeah.
And even then too, if you got a degree, like my older brother used to say, "You're not Indian because you got a degree." That's the Indian Act. If you had a degree, you would lose your status. If I married a white man, I would lose my status. So here in Tsuut'ina, a lot of women didn't marry, so their children could be Tsuut'ina, and if they had a white father, that child would be Tsuut'ina, because the woman didn't marry. But yet again, a man could marry a white woman and automatically this blonde, blue-eyed woman would be considered full status Indian. That's why when I went into the States trying to get my green card, they said, we're not giving it to you because you Canadians give Indian status to white women. Because those white women used it.
Yeah.
That's why...
And there are probably a few still kicking around here today.
Yeah, well, that's why I say I don't trust white women.
Yeah.
I mean, like...
Well, thank you for having me in your home. As I say this as a white woman.
See, and I had a white friend from the pandemic, and she moved. She was in Montreal for a while, and then she came back she's here, but she introduced me to her friend, and then she called me and she was saying my cholesterol's so high. I said, well, why don't you stop drinking for 6 months? She ghosted me.
She can't handle the truth.
And see, the Wachashtawish day when I was talking, he came to my home. I was talking to him. We were starting to talk about alcohol. He says, "I can look after myself." It was like, okay, boundary. Put a boundary down.
Yeah.
That's all that was needed. But some white women just can't do it. Now, and I think it's because of like I met this white woman, and she says, "I live in a nursing home." I said, "Oh, well, that's okay." Like I thought, why did she say she's in a nursing home?
Yeah.
And we started talking about men, and she says, "Oh, these men, they're horny white men." She just wrinkled up her face. She was so disgusted. And I thought, how fortunate am I? I have my home. I have my house. I don't have to worry about some horny man coming around looking into my room.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, you've got the horses. You've got a lovely crop of burdock root up the path. No creepy white men would dare come here. Just casually.
No, like, see, the thing about it too is like, it's really difficult, for me to talk to. The reason I spoke to this white woman was because when I started talking about healthy human sexuality with indigenous women, it was really difficult because they still have that violence that, like, either they've been battered or sexually assaulted, and they've never really healed from it.
Yeah.
So that's why I said in a cult, when you heal from it, your whole identity is shattered. And so when I took these men who sexually assaulted me, that was like over 30 years ago. That was my I didn't understand it. I had a friend who was a forensic nurse. She's passed away. And she said to me, "Marina, once you do this, you'll say, why didn't I do this earlier?" Because doing that as a woman is like breaking from a cult.
Yeah.
Because you've enabled somebody to have control, coercive control over you by scaring you or being afraid of them.
Yeah.
And then once you face that, then you're able to have that courage to face anything. That's why I wanted to talk about my brother and sister, because my brother hasn't talked to me since my mother died.
Oh. And yet he has the house just kind of across the way.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And his children don't talk to me either. I'm shunned. And the same with the sister who's moving from Utah.
Yeah.
Like, she still thinks I'm gay. Even when I moved down there, she had a former roommate who I believe was actually gay, but it was none of her business. I said, when I confronted her, I said, I hear you're talking about me being gay. I said, you've had this issue ever since I've been here. Yeah. In 1976, that's, if you don't like an indigenous woman, Native American, or you don't like them as a roommate, the first thing you do to attack them is say they're gay. That's that's how you operate. I confronted her like that.
Yeah. Be like, A, there's nothing wrong with that, and B, like,
but it's like
anything you don't understand.
But it's like a privilege. It's like it's a pretendian privilege. They're indigenous, but because they're Mormon, they believe they belong to the true church, and they have some privilege because they're sealed in the Mormon temple, and that privilege means that they're going to go to heaven, even though they're indigenous. like white privilege.
Yeah, totally. To be like, I did the work, I bought into the system, I get into heaven. And then, yeah, I could see that for somebody deprogramming for that, for an indigenous person, that they would have to like grieve the loss of this idea of white heaven, even though the idea of white heaven is like controlling and shitty. They would still have to, like, that would really hurt their heart to be like, I'm no longer going to white heaven. I don't know what's happening, or like, yeah. And that probably takes more energy than they have, and it's so scary that they just don't do it.
Well, that's why my sister's afraid to come back here.
Yeah, because she's going to be, being in Sutuna. It's like, I wonder, too, if your brother's ignoring you, his kids are ignoring you, but then it's like, I wonder if he feels like an island, too, because I can't see, like, the whole nation here, like, everyone on the res being like, oh, we're just gonna treat you just like a normal native guy. So it's like, I wonder if he feels, you feel isolated, but then I wonder if he feels isolated, but like superior in why he's isolated.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
See, and even too, when we talk about restorative and transformative justice, when I hear young Native American men in the United States talk about it, and they say, we used to banish people, and they said, but we don't know how our ancestors did this. He says, so in order for us as young people to understand restorative justice, we have to have a conversation. We have to talk about it. We have to say, well, what does make somebody accountable for the crime they did? Yeah. And part of it is that coercive control. The community has a say in how they treat people, even though they're not, like, they've served their time and they're done like my brother. He knows that he can never reoffend because he knows how people are treating him. So the majority of people who are in prisons too, high majority of Indigenous women and men. Yeah. Which is also the thing about when I talk about healthy human sexuality. A lot of this talk about like even when I was talking to this white woman, she says, my friends, they're married and the wife doesn't use birth control. The only birth control they use is abortion. And it shocked me that women did that. Okay, because like I said, I haven't been sexually active in 50 years, so a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about with women who are like with partners and just what they agree and disagree to, it surprises me.
My sister works, provides abortion services, and it's interesting. Like, maybe I'm saying too much, Marina, but basically I understand that a lot of people getting abortion services, there's like a whole protocol in place of what to do if a partner calls and is like, is this going on? Because many of the people getting an abortion, they like explicitly request that it's like, nobody knows I'm here. They can't. And that's the only place I know, I guess besides like a cop shop, that's the only place I know in Canada that has like, it's covered in bulletproof glass, is where you go get an abortion. Because people need to be so secretive about it sometimes for their own safety, but their own safety is maybe being in a cult.
Or like part of the talk about healthy human sexuality is talking about hypersexuality and how it's a taboo. Talking about limerence and how it's a taboo. So all these mental health conditions that are associated with these tag words has to do with actual conversations. So for example, limerence. like they said, you have to balance your central nervous system, and I've used the analogy of how that looks, but the reality of it is like you have to physically do it. Like it's one thing, like say for example, my cousin says, "Oh, Marina, you're going to get your pension. You're going to go to the casino." I'm going, no, I'm not. I'm working on my central nervous system. Mm-hmm. So my whole life I've never gambled until like I got older, mm-hmm. and even then like I'm not addicted to porn, and I'm not addicted to fast foods. However, when you look at male and female, and if they're say gambling or some addiction, and then porn, and then fast foods, that means like say for gambling, you just got to give it cold turkey. You can't mm-hmm. ease off on it. But with porn, you can ease off, and the same mm-hmm. with fast foods, you can ease off.
Yeah.
But you have to be abstinent for like 3 months. See, and when I look at myself, and I'm going, gee, I haven't been sexually active in 50 years. So, you know, when it comes to that, like I've been really, I think, like I know some people, when they start talking, I'm going, no, they're biologically, women and men are so different. Because men, like they have to masturbate so that they are healthy because of their mm-hmm. prostate. Whereas women need to masturbate because so men it's like dopamine, mm-hmm. with women it's oxytocin. Mm-hmm. 2 different hormones, same sexual experience. Mm-hmm. But with women, because women have babies, and understand this too, when women have babies and they're breastfeeding, they need to get vaginal estrogen because their body is being depleted when they're nursing. Mm. So as women have more children, they have incontinence. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know this until I was older because I've never had children. Yeah. So the thing is, because they continually have UTIs because of incontinence, they said, oh, don't go on vaginal estrogen, blah, 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 blah. And now they're going, no, vaginal estrogen will help with the incontinence. Mm-hmm. Vaginal estrogen will help with UTI infections because mm-hmm. when you take antibiotics, something happens to the brain chemistry after 6 months. Mm. Even too, if you have an operation and anesthetic, mm-hmm. that anesthetic still stays in your brain 6 months after. Mm. So a lot of brain health, and in terms of estrogen, is important for women, mm-hmm. especially sexuality, stimulus. See, and I didn't know that until the pandemic.
And you keep on saying that it's like you haven't been sexually active for 50 years, but I think you've been like active on behalf of sexuality and learning and like...
Exactly. And that's why I try to tell indigenous women.
And empowering yourself with the knowledge. So it doesn't matter if you're not running around being with 1,000 men. It's like you've got something better, which is knowledge.
And that's why when I say to white women too, even though you think you're this matriarch, the whole fact that you've chosen to have a child with a man, and you're suppressing, you're obeying, and you're vulnerable, especially if you've been traumatized and you have a trauma bond rather than a regular bond. Mm-hmm. If have that trauma bond, then you're going to be addicted to limerence. And if you have a mental health issue, bipolar or schizophrenic, then it's really hard. Mm-hmm. So there are so many things that you have to shop around for your own mental health. Yeah. And so when I'm talking to people who want to be therapists, who are white, who come into First Nations, I'm going, no.
Get the hell out of here.
It's amazing because they come educated, thinking they're fucking fooling us, putting a blindfold over us, working. And then what happens? They suffer from a mental health issue and they have to be fired. And I'm going, don't you think that we, like as Indigenous people, that we know? When we've been around it our whole lives.
You can just see it coming.
Yes. And even I went to South Centre. I went with 2 people from here. And I said, I'm going to eat. And so I cloistered myself behind these bushes. Mm-hmm. An old white man came and sat behind me watching me eat for a half an hour, thinking I was alone. As soon as the 2 people came mm-hmm. and sat beside me, he left. And that's what I'm saying. How white men look at indigenous women. Just for me, as an indigenous woman wearing my skin, the fact that I haven't been sexually active and I see the way they look at me, and I'm going, I'm not that indigenous woman. I'm not that person in your memory. But I can see that you see something in me that has triggered you.
Yeah.
Do they fucking know that?
Yeah.
They don't.
You're onto them.
Exactly. And that's why no matter, this lady, the one who ghosted me, 65, she's 65 years old. She's going in for her master's to become a therapist. Because why? She's got a bunch of indigenous friends.
Yeah. Well, there's that misconception, too, that indigeneity equals, like, spirituality or knowing, just, like, by default. And it's like, even if it does, that's not for you. And it's like, for that, it seems to me, for your spiritual knowing and stuff, you've had to work, you've had to unlearn so much crap.
Yes.
To get where you are now.
Then the unlearning of it is so empowering. That's why I wanted to have the talk with you, because when I went with Joshua Shea to Las Vegas, and I thought, I don't want to be in limerence with him. I didn't want this hypersexuality or any kind of diagnosis. Like, I think there's one called, like, where you reality check, where you think you have this fantasy that's unrealistic. So there's all kinds of called dysphoria. Yeah, with it. And I'm going, no. I spoke to this white woman, and I said, this is how I feel about this man. And I said, this is just normal. So when I talk about my podcast, I talk about fantasy. Fantasy is different than other genres of limerence or other attachments or coercive control. I said we are our worst enemy when we self-diagnose. So I said it's like basic psychology 101. When I was in a psychology classroom and the instructor was talking about predators and how the human mind, if an adult thinks about having sex with a child, is it sinful? Is it a sin, or are you going to go to hell because you're thinking of having sex with a child? And she's asking this in the classroom, and she says you can have the thought, because again, this is the human brain. You know, we tend to have ideas pop in and out of our heads. She says it's the movement of actually following through on that thought that makes it unforgivable.
Yeah.
And it's the same way with fantasy. You can have a sexual fantasy, but once it moves into the genre of action, then that's the problem. So it's important to talk about the sexual fantasy rather than doing it. So that's why when children have been traumatized, or they think that there's something the matter with them because they were healthily exploring their sexuality as a child. If they don't have guided imagery by parents who have openly talked about healthy human sexuality, then how are they going to be guided?
Yeah. And especially residential schools, religions, all of this crap that just like pretends this stuff doesn't exist. That human sexuality is like for Jesus, or
I like the way you said that, Jesus. Because when I tried talking to my cousin, and just like other women who have a difficult time talking about healthy human sexuality, I say, think of it as the baseline of being bisexual. That all human beings are bisexual. Just think about it. I said, if there was no heterosexuality, no homosexuality, and everybody's baseline is bisexual, I said, then you can start thinking about how people think. You can say, okay, I'm here at this space too. And you can have you can relate to them. But if you can't even do that, if you can't even imagine that,
Mm-hmm.
then what does it say about you as an individual, you being healthy in terms of mental health?
Yeah. The limits of your brain.
Yeah, because you have, like, I really appreciate your insight, because like I said, it's like the I don't know who listens to my podcast, but I know some people are indigenous that are listening,
Mm-hmm.
and like my cousin, she says, aren't you afraid that when you tell people you haven't been sexually active in 50 years, they're not going to believe you? I'm going, why would it bother me?
Or who cares? Like, other people are gonna sleep at night no matter what you do, Marina.
Exactly. Or even like if somebody's doing something, I'm going, do you like, I'll say, think about it. You're worrying about this. Do you think that other person's worrying the same way you're worrying?
Yeah.
They're not. They're not. So
Very
think about
much
it.
not. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's it's those, that whole thing. Like for me, being alone in my home, and isolation and sadness or whatever, that's human nature. It's not like to be cast into purgatory or hell. And I tell people, 500 years ago, and TikTok and everywhere, indigenous people didn't know there was a devil.
Yeah.
That's only 500
Because
years.
there wasn't.
Exactly. And then I talk about Western Canada, how like Canada's only been 150 years old, yet in Eastern Canada, the Eastern indigenous people have been through systemic racism 100 years more than us.
Yeah, because that was closest to Europe.
Yeah, so for us, in terms of matriarchy, we're more in tune with matriarchy. So when I say I'm a matriarch because of the way I was raised by my mom and my grandmothers, I can't undo that. I am a matriarch. And even the fact that whatever my brother tries to do, being a Mormon priesthood holder, it still doesn't take away the fact that I'm living in a community where people have known me my whole life.
Yeah, and he was probably in Utah for a lot of that.
Yeah. So even to my so-called white friend, and that's why I say I don't trust white women. Not in the sense of like we're having a conversation, you and I, but in the sense of privilege, because even though she's saying I'm trying to be open about this, there is still that privilege that she does there is no way she can comprehend that. I think sometimes maybe if she ever ends up in a nursing home, like that one white woman. And this woman says to me, when I was younger, I never knew anything about sex, she says. I didn't know because I said, do you know where a G-spot is? Do you know? Like I was asking her questions. And then even when I was talking to, I forget who I was talking to, I was saying, oh yeah, one of the young ladies, she's indigenous. I said to her, do you know, I said, my white friend, the one who passed away, who said, once you do this, you'll say, why didn't I do this earlier? She was a forensic nurse, and she used to come out here, and she said, I've counseled a lot of white women. She was white herself, and she says, and the majority of women would talk about their honeymoon, their first night that they had sex with their husband. A lot of women, sometimes they were raped on their wedding night, and they just thought that was normal. Because nobody ever talked to them that what sexual assault was.
Yeah.
So sometimes when they married, they remained virgins because of religiosity, and on their wedding night they'd catch a venereal disease. So a lot of this stuff, when it comes to what do you call it, holistic and collective support systems. When you do AA and Al-Anon, and you have support groups called Limerence, where there's groups of people who talk about trauma bonds.
Yeah.
And so I do think having community is important, but it's only good to the extent of how much much you get from it. It's like if the baseline is bisexuality and the two couples come together and they enjoy themselves, say 5-10 years, and they outgrow each other, then it's okay to leave. There's no eternity. Like that's the myth. That's the cult mentality that they have to break. And it's so sad that by the time you become a senior citizen and your husband has died or you're just alone, that you're left having not had that experience your whole life.
Yeah.
And that
you just think, this is it.
Yes.
Just gonna wait around to die.
Exactly. and that's why it surprised me when this woman says, I live in a nursing home. And she says, I thought, how must she live in fear that any man could come around and just take advantage of her.
That's terrifying.
And who's there? Like, I know the staff would be limited. It's almost like as if they're in Indian residential school, because the abuse that's happening.
Yeah, and the cover up and just that strict insistence that, like, it's fine. This is a good place for you to be. This is the best place you can be, is in long-term care.
And that's what's so sad. Like, I took care of my mother right until she was 86. I think she was 73 when I started living here with her. And my friend in California, she took care of her. She's Japanese American. She took care of her mother until her mother died at 97. And then, but it, like, I said to her, I'm so glad, like, everything I learned from my mother I really appreciate as she's aging, because now I'm aging and I'm seeing myself too. But my friend Diane, her mother, she was a dental technician in Japan when they dropped the bomb in Hiroshima.
Wow.
And her and her companion were to get on the train to go to Hiroshima. But she didn't get on the train because she had a cancellation. So her friend went in, but her friend survived when the bomb hit because she was wearing a white uniform, her dental hygienic uniform. And the only places she got burnt was where the buttons were.
Wow.
So her whole life, Diane's mother, her whole life wore white. She had to have a white car. Her house had to be white because of the radiation. And then I had a Japanese roommate that I lived with in Utah. She used to always wear this big white shirt, this big man's white shirt with she'd wear a belt. I said, why are you dressed like that? It's a day of grieving. I said, you're wearing white? She says, yeah. In Japan, it's grieving because of the bomb in Hiroshima.
Wow.
And so Diane's looking after her mom. In Japanese culture, when her mother's having incontinence, she'll strip her down naked, and she'll strip herself down naked too and go into the shower and wash her mom. Okay, so things I had to do for my mom, I had to do catheters for her for the last 6 months of her life. So I said to Diane, I'm so grateful that I saw, like, we'd have video conference, and Diane would say, she'd always, I get in arguments with my mother too, and she'd get into arguments with her mom saying, she says, I would tell her, you got to walk. Your the doctor says you have to have a physiotherapist, you got to walk. She said, my mother won't walk. And I'm on the video conference. She says, Marina, do you see my mother in the background? And she was walking back and forth. You see her walking in the hallway back and forth? You know why she's walking? She won't walk for me. The only reason she's walking back and forth is her physiotherapist came. He's a handsome white man. And I said to Diane, I'm so grateful that your mother was able to, like, that this physiotherapist knew that she was sexually attracted to him.
Yeah.
And that he showed her respect.
Yeah.
And that's what women need. And that's what men need to understand about women. And that's what white women in nursing homes aren't getting, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, and then I think you hear on res that you have every right to be suspicious of white women in general. And yeah, keep your guard up, Marina. And thank you for having me in your home. This is a great honor.
Well, thank you. So, did you have anything before I wrap up the podcast?
No, just thanks. extreme gratitude for shooting the shit with you, Marina.
No, I appreciate it because I'm trying to get a mic too so that I can have my phone and tape record when I meet people because.
Oh yeah, like on the road.
Yeah, because even the people I've grown up with, childhood friends, and just how they were when they were younger, as opposed to what's happening now with their grandchildren, just a whole different lifestyle, a whole different way of looking at things.
Yeah.
That I think if we're not talking about it and not engaging young people, because a lot of people just think, oh, women's rights, and I'm going, no, women couldn't own a credit card and they couldn't own a house in the 70s, and they didn't vote until I forget what year in the 60s, and then even I think the right to charge their husband, like for a woman to say no to being sexually assaulted by their husband, too. All those laws, and yet, because look at Iran and those women. They were lawyers and everything, and now they're forced to wear burqas because of fascism, like, and religion.
Yeah, there's if you look up Iranian music in the 60s and just photos of Iranian people in the 60s. It's amazing, and they're so free, and they're so happy. I knew an Iranian scientist, and the second she moved to Canada, she was like, I'm not going to wear my hijab anymore because I don't have to. And then we were driving by a mosque once, and then I was like noticing the tower where like they do the very quiet in North America, the call to prayer, and I was like, do you ever like miss that? And she was like, no, I have nightmares of the call to prayer where I wake up sweating. So if I ever hear the call to prayer in Canada, freaks me out. But yeah, like she was a full like postdoctoral fellow, went all the way. So it's interesting. It's still in Iran, their science programs are amazing. Like they still have an amazing education system. But yeah, still, if she would have stayed, she would have been a brilliant scientist in a hijab. And here she could be a brilliant scientist without a hijab, but then unfortunately she went to the US, and then obviously it's not a great thing to be Iranian in the US, so I should actually look up where she is now. I'm worried about her.
Well, it's important to know people.
Mm-hmm.
Like I took a philosophy course, and I took a John Stuart Mills, who's the father of liberalism. I didn't know, like, he became the youngest politician voted in Parliament in England, but he married a woman 25 years his senior and never consummated the marriage.
Wow.
The same with William Shakespeare.
Oh.
Married an older woman and never consummated the marriage.
Yeah.
So when I look at relationships and just how people live their lives, to be free, be a free thinker.
Mm-hmm.
Like just for that. Like when people talk about freedom, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Just
freedom of the mind.
Yeah, and the ability to just enjoy like what we'll call it their mission in life.
Mm-hmm. Their mission, their purpose, their calling, indulging their curiosity, which it sounds so decadent to indulge one's curiosity. So it's like there's got to be a better word of just like to maybe follow curiosity. That's the ultimate freedom. To me, I'm just grateful. Like I studied the sciences first. I got a scholarship in mathematics, but I didn't even cash that in because I was already back in Canada, and then I went back again, and then I just studied psychology, and then I came back
and I went back to, I transferred some of my credits so I can get a degree in fine arts.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to go in and get a master's because they've got, I said, 60,000 people with masters in fine arts. What would the purpose be?
Yeah.
But I met a lot of instructors, women with PhDs, and one of them at the University of Calgary was in philosophy, and she said, well, first of all, I took a gender studies course at Brigham Young, and this woman had never married, and we had a circle of young women. It was just a gender course, and the majority of those women were trying to get married. And so the whole course was to talk about freedom as a woman, what you decide. And that was like a breakthrough class because...
it also seems like an oxymoron of like a gender studies course at Brigham Young. I'm sure it was legit, but yeah.
Yes,
interesting culture to put the subject matter in.
And this other instructor at University of Calgary, she says there are very few women at the university level, at a PhD level, who teach philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
And she said the amount of reading you have to do. She says if a woman tries to do this and she has children, I think she gave a percentage of how much content that the woman would not gather based on the male counterpart who had all the time to learn.
Yeah. And
she says that's the reality. So with women, when she was making a statement, she could not have done this if she had chose to have a child, because the work is so hard.
Yeah.
And even as a professor, to do this type of work. And so that's why I think for me, I looked after my niece for 7 years, and she's like, I have a bit of autism as well, and I had her go on do graphics and animation, and I said if you put 10,000 hours into something, you become a master at it. And so I think one summer she went up to northern Quebec to teach animation to some Inuit students.
Wow.
So I think anything we do, even if we don't have the money or the education to go to university, it's important to have that tenacity. And I think, like I said, that one fellow that went into West Point, just imagine the sheer willpower to go every day for 4 years to be around people who hated you.
Well, you did it for more than 4 years.
Well, I think about Trump, and I think poo-poo on him, because he doesn't have the insight or the wherewithal to know how dynamic human beings are.
Yeah, he doesn't know what it's like to be in a room of people who hate him, because he has the luxury to surround himself with people who, they're sycophants. They'll tell him yes to whatever he says. But then it's like there's this whole, like, core of the earth deep hatred, and he's just built this little bubble.
Well, this little bubble has defined him into the power of the mind, because there are so many people out there who, when he is gone, or whatever the politicians, whatever happens in the United States, the world is still thriving. That's the lesson. Is like, if you can take a look at, like, say for example, all those black people, 10%. If the 10% of the American population is black, that's equivalent to the entire country of Canada being black.
Yeah.
And you look at what they've done in terms of, like, just sheer willpower.
And advancing the culture.
Exactly.
Incomparable.
And that's why when I talk about indigenous youth and artists, I said there's a renaissance happening with indigenous young people, and even if there's systemic racism and white supremacy, yes, they're real and they're dangerous, But the reality of it is just like Trump. They don't see the sheer willpower of what's there. That's why when I look at the Oshati the Sioux people, 20 to 10,000 years ago, a white buffalo appeared to the people, saying at some point in life, there's going to be white animals that are going to appear on Earth. When those white animals appear, you have to be worried because life is going to be in danger.
Yeah.
Okay, we didn't have a God, like we didn't have a devil or heaven. So who was this white animal that came?
Colonizers.
Exactly. You're the first person that has hit it on the nose, because I'm saying right now you have so many people pretending because you see white buffaloes, white moose, white birds. I said, no. I said 500 years ago, this prophecy came to being 500 years ago. And now, because of climate change, do you know this morning in Nepal, there was an earthquake, and because of the snow runoff, the glacial runoff, a huge mud of water came down the mountain. It was like at least maybe a quarter of a mile high, and it just decimated. You look at the people, and they just look like ants.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything so horrific.
Oh.
Like, yeah, and that's climate change. And even here, the smoke.
Yeah.
My whole life, I've never seen that. And I say Al Gore, when he was president, in 1952, the year I was born, he was working on his thesis on climate change.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then I talk about the oil sands, and we're the third largest oil producer. All that water in the northern boreal forests that have been drained from groundwater to make sure we produce oil has caused all those forest fires. When my brother went up there to go and sweat, they had to go an hour out of the bush to bring in a big container of water just to have ceremony.
I really don't want to leave.
Okay.
My friend Vanessa Badger, who puts on that.
No names.
Oh, sorry. My friend who puts on a powwow is expecting me at lunch. We got to get things ready for her powwow.
Okay, well, hold on. Okay, so my podcast, I'm going to let you go because my guest has got to go. But thanks for listening, and if you have any... Anyway, hope you enjoyed this podcast like I did. I really appreciate you coming. Thank you.